Shaking up the family tree with siblings synchronicity.
Hello and welcome to the second episode of Sister Sister, a podcast by and for queer women. Today we'll be talking about queer childhood heroes. Why, you might ask? Well, I'll tell you. Being a queer kid is hard because you never saw yourself reflected in the Disney princesses falling for the dashing prince. There was never anyone you truly wanted to be in a girl band, sorry Sporty Spice, and you didn't quite know whether you wanted to be Lara Croft or if you wanted to be with her. So you really sat up and noticed anyone queer. Any girl wearing a suit, any boy with makeup on. Anyone that was outside of the big heteronormative gender binary bubble that you find yourself in. So I'll be talking to some Icelandic and of course some British people about their queer childhood heroes. First, I spoke with trans activist and filmmaker Ugla, who says that queer childhood heroes were hard to come by growing up in rural Iceland.
My name is Ugla and I'm born and raised in Iceland. I guess I would title myself as a trans activist, as I was a spokesperson for trans people in Iceland for many years, but I recently moved to the UK, and now I'm doing more sort of documentary filmmaking things through a project called My Generation, which is a film project that sort of celebrates and shows trans people and trans lives.
Fantastic. And who would you say was your kind of queer childhood hero then?
I have a bit of a trouble with it actually, because as a child I didn't actually have a lot of role models or sort of heroes, as I didn't know anyone around me. I was raised in a very sort of isolated community on a farm in Iceland. So the sort of internet and access to media wasn't really a big thing for me. It wasn't until a bit later that I got into contact with bigger sort of trans people or queer people around.
And who would you say, sort of since you've had access to, the internet and access to a bit more of a community online, who would you say has been a sort of inspiring figure for you?
I would say most definitely Janet Mock would be one of my sort of biggest inspirations, and also Kate Bornstein. I think those sort of two have been where I've thought most of like my sort of inspiration, both academically and just personally, because they both write very. They're both writers and they're both sort of activists about trans stuff, and they're very personal, but they're also very political in what they do. So I guess that's sort of where I come in, sort of this radical vulnerability that they have, as they sort of advocate for trans rights and they show you their human side as well, and they show you how it affects them personally. And I think that's a valuable thing when you're advocating for something, to sort of be vulnerable about yourself and what you're doing, as well as being a radical political person.
Back to Scotland now, and I'll be speaking to my friend Amy, who was kind enough to speak to us on her commute, so apologies in advance for any train sounds you might hear in the background. Amy was interesting in that she agreed with Ugla in that there wasn't an awful lot of openly queer people that she could look up to, and she didn't know herself that she was queer until she was 19 years old. But what she did notice really was people who stood out from the mainstream media, and here's what she had to say.
I didn't really know that I was gay until I was like 19, so there was no one that I particularly saw as a role model or anything as I was growing up. However, when I was probably about 5 or 6, I became obsessed with Bjork and Blondie and just used to play them constantly. I was obsessed with their image, with their look, the fact that they were not really like the kind of women that you saw in the mainstream media. Bjork particularly was quite unique. And I think when I was growing up, my parents, they definitely tried to encourage me to be unique in my own ways as well. So that was maybe why I was so obsessed with Bjork. Yeah, and I just used to play it on full blast and dance around the living room. And I didn't know anyone else that knew who Bjork was at that time. Everyone was into the Spice Girls or other kind of boy bands, but Bjork was my idol, my role model.
Fab, cool, and Icelandic as well.
And Icelandic as well, yeah.
Yeah, there you go, full circle. So from one Icelandic woman to another, I spoke to Anna, a radio producer for the Icelandic National Radio Service, about Annie Lennox, Tomb Raider, and a lack of lesbian role models.
Yeah, to be honest, I didn't have any queer childhood heroes. There was no one that I really saw. I think the only gay person I knew when I was younger was Ellen DeGeneres, and I didn't really connect with her. I obviously think that she's really, really cool, and she's a great role model, but I didn't, she never really, I don't know, she didn't fit what I was looking for as a child, I think, or as a teenager even. But it wasn't until I got older that I started finding queer childhood heroes, so I could only talk about those ones, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. Go ahead. So who caught your attention, sort of being, when you were a bit older, who caught your attention as a bit of an icon?
Yeah, as I got older, I started realizing that, the importance of role models, and I only started realizing it when I actually found role models that I related with or could identify with. And I think the first one was Susan Sontag, who was a bisexual writer and a philosopher and thinker and cultural writer. When I read her diaries and her work and when I found out that she was gay and fell in love with men and women, that had a huge effect on me, and to be able to see someone that I related with, and then I realized that the lack of queer role models that we have in our society, because I found it quite rare to be seeing someone that I actually related to. But then I found out that there were more women as I started reading, but I really needed to look for them. I found out that Virginia Woolf was most likely gay as well, but kind of in the closet.
Yeah.
And Eleanor Roosevelt and Margaret Mead and all these women that I'd been reading, but I really had to dig for information about their sexuality. But today, I think we have in the recent years, maybe the last 5 to 7 years, there's been a boom in people coming out in the open with their sexuality, and Ellen Page, Sarah Paulson, and Kate McKinnon, and with TV shows like Orange is the New Black and Transparent, which is so great because now there's more role models for people. But yeah, when I think back to my childhood, I didn't really have any.
Yeah, it's really interesting because a lot of the Icelandic people I've spoke to have said that there had, when they were growing up, there wasn't really anyone noticeably queer on TV. And
no.
in the UK, pretty much every pop star looked queer in the 80s and 90s because there was a big fashion for wearing really outlandish clothes, and then a lot of men wore makeup as well. So the ones that were actually queer just sort of blended in. But then, I think if you were queer as well, you could always tell. Someone like Boy George, I mean, a lot of people thought that he was a woman when he actually, came out in his music videos. But I always remember him and looking up at the TV and thinking, whoa, this guy's makeup's amazing. He's not acting like, I'd seen men act before. But that is a big thing in the UK. So we're pretty much, there was a lot of queers about.
What about lesbians? Did you see any lesbians?
I mean, it wasn't necessarily about the sexuality, but I remember Annie Lennox in the 90s, and she had orange hair that was shaved, and she used to wear a suit. And I thought, whoa, that was maybe she was, maybe she wasn't. There was at least some sort of ambiguity there, which was enough for me at the time. But yeah, I think, to be honest, there's always been more kind of male visibility with kind of queer pop stars and stuff and females. But there was definitely a few women who were a bit out of kind of what you would expect people to look like at that time, which was exciting to see when you're a kid and you don't necessarily buy with what's expected
like Annie Lennox, and I don't know her sexual orientation, but like you're talking about this, like you're seeing something that looks very queer, right? Like,
yeah.
What I was always really looking for, like I totally identify with, like, I love being able to see like the otherness, but also just like Angelina Jolie, but still being like, but I like women, you know, not really flaunting it, but just, you know, just seeing someone out there that just was gay.
You know, I think a lot of girls in their late 20s who would go on to like girls or be interested in girls did notice Angelina Jolie because she was like in Tomb Raider. That was like a really popular film, and it was a way to that was maybe the first kind of character like that, like on film, a girl that was like into action stuff. So generally it was kind of not really done up until then. So I thought that made me notice. I noticed that when I was a kid.
Yeah.
So far, we've gathered that queer heroes weren't always easy to find as a kid, especially in the pre-internet age of late 90s and early 2000s girlhood. I spoke with the current Miss Drag Iceland about his queer inspiration and using that in his performances.
So, my name is Sigurður Heimir, and I'm Icelandic, and I guess my childhood heroes, I didn't really have that many like queer heroes growing up. I didn't really pay too close attention, and I didn't really look up to, that many people. But I do remember that I suddenly really looked up to like Freddie Mercury, and I never really knew why. It was like way later than I actually realized that he was gay. Well, you should have figured, but and also like later, David Bowie really kind of spoke to me, and I guess those two really kind of filled the queer hero part in my life, and are kind of their presence, their energy they bring to like a performance and to like a song or to whatever is something I really want to like kind of take into my life and try to do. Just put my all into whatever I'm doing and channel their energy.
Great, and it's interesting what you're saying about how you looked up to Freddie Mercury and you kind of didn't really know why. I think like throughout my childhood, I sort of did that as well. I must have sensed there was something like a bit of otherness or a bit something outside the sort of ordinary that you kind of bubble you see when you're a kid, but you don't really know why or what you're looking for or why you like them so much. But yes, that's definitely something I had as well. And I was obsessed with Boy George. I used to have this video and I used to watch him on it and just think, this guy, you know, he's never like anybody I've ever seen before. And obviously you're not thinking about if they're queer or not, you're just thinking, wow, who's this person?
It's like they're just so different, they're so unique, and I love it. I am a drag queen as well. I'm the drag queen Go-Go Star. I'm the current reigning Miss Drag Iceland. Yeah, I really try to channel their energy into like my performances and whatnot, because there's there are people I really look up to, and I really want to try to make others feel the same way they made me feel when I was younger.
Grand, and drag's so expressive, isn't it, as well? And you can see, why you like David Bowie so much as well. He played a lot with costume and gender, and it's really interesting.
Yeah, just like blurring gender lines and making these really extravagant things, and I adore that man.
Just one of a kind, really. It's just not been anybody else. It had so many different stages as well, so many different kind of looks and almost concepts. It was pretty amazing.
Absolutely. And it can take something from like every single stage of his like evolution, and it's so different and so unique.
What's your favourite sort of David Bowie period or look?
Probably Sticky Stardust, mainly because it has my name in it. But I think that's my favorite like character of his, or like a face of his.
Yeah, me too. I think me too. Those leggings, the eyeshadow, just gotta love it. What a guy. Personally, I've never had any one fixed queer hero. However, I did tend to sit up and notice anything that was outside of the stereotypical gender roles, and especially any powerful women. One of my favourite Disney characters, for example, was Maleficent from Sleeping Beauty. She wore all black, she had a dragon, and she was absolutely fabulous. She also wasn't a princess and wasn't trying to be saved by anybody, and I liked that. So although the idea of childhood heroes may seem like a bit of fun, I think the importance of visible queer people, especially to children, cannot be underestimated. Queer kids need to know they do fit in, and also that not everyone fits into a box. What's more is that non-queer kids would be seeing them too, and since prejudice grows out of fear based on assumption, that can really only be a good thing. I hope you've enjoyed this second episode of Sister Sister.